Thank you for coming tonight. I'm your first speaker. I'm going to talk about what I learned about attraction. Hello. So if we hear about attraction, usually you have this image that women attract men and men have to take action. You know? And most dating advice is basically for men that is like, okay, you need to do this, don't do that, follow strategy X, and follow this step. But over time, in my 10 years of personal development and being a dating coach, I noticed a path where we can develop a presence that's authentic and attractive to women. So that what we do is part of our expression of who we are. And that conveys what's actually attractive to women. How did I find it out? Well, basically, in these 10 years, I approached more than 8,000 women in public, like in a supermarket, on the street, in public transport, all those places usually people don't talk with each other anymore. And in these 10 years, I discovered as a man, we go through 3 stages of growth in regarding of our dating experience. So the first phase is usually like we wait and hope for the best, that the one comes into our life. That usually looks like, okay, yeah, there's someone, I'm not sure if I should talk to her, or like, she definitely has a boyfriend, she looks too good for me, you know. And for example, when I was at uni, there was a cute girl I was interested in. We have like sometimes contact when we were like on the floor talking to each other, but I didn't know how to make a move. So even we were sitting next to each other on a table, drinking something, I knew she was like interested in me, but I was too shy and too nervous. So I was like, okay. So I basically missed that opportunity in that case. Another example is like me, 12 years ago, on Facebook, saw a cute girl with a katana in the picture, so I was like, it's gonna be my girlfriend, I'm sure about that. Great idea, wrote to her, realized she's in Japan, studying Japanese culture and language, double points to her. And I learned from her that she was looking for a new place to come back to from her Japan exchange year. So I offered her my free room in our shared apartment. But henceforth, 2 weeks in, I realized we weren't compatible at all. Nonetheless, because I didn't have any other options, as well as didn't know how to actually relate to other women in that time space I was with her, she was the only opportunity I had. So I continued pursuing her, despite I already felt it was not compatible. And only after 1 year or so, when she said like she has enough, I realized I have to change something. And that's where phase 2 started. And I call this phase confident competence. So in this phase, I basically learned to go and meet women in different circumstances. Maybe in a meetup, maybe in public, supermarket, starting conversations, also learning more about myself. And let me give you an example how that usually looks like. For example, recently, I was like traveling abroad in a nice cute town in Italy. Saw someone that I felt like attracted to. And I said like, hey, you look amazing, you have a lovely presence. And she smiled, she felt flattered. But she was in a hurry, in a rush to go to uni, having exams and so. So I knew I had to actually make something happen. So I fumbled about getting contacts and established so we can go on a date. But her response was like very, walls going down, because I noticed something's not working there. What I did was basically like putting pressure on her, even though my intention wasn't that. And since she felt that pressure, the door closed. So a few days later, same situation, another time, another place with another woman. I went up to her in a bar, started a conversation, bantering, flirting, the vibe was good, connection was there. But since there was like a limited time frame and she was traveling, I was also like going for the number and pushing for a date. But surprisingly, same result. Because she felt the pressure of me trying to get a certain outcome, she didn't respond to my messages. So I realized something's not working. And from my experience, we create our own reality based on the beliefs we have in our subconscious mind. With that, I decided to introspect, take some time with myself in private and exploring how was I creating this outcome of always not receiving any further responses. And what I discovered was basically a belief that is namely, I have to do something in order to be loved. I have to do something in order to be loved. And when I felt into this, I had a picture in my mind relating to my father. I clearly felt like, when I was young, I had to be careful and see what he's doing, how he's responding. Is my action I do good? Does he approve that? And if he approves, I am safe. You know? If I have like an emotional absent father, like I did, I had to be very careful. So I became very good at reading responses and gestures. And my safety was dependent on making sure he likes me. And that meant I learned that I had to do something in order to be loved. And that translated also into my dating experience. I want to have a certain outcome, namely the approval of someone else, in order to feel safe, good enough, and therefore being sure that we can continue getting to know each other. But once I integrated this belief, things started to change. I noticed that suddenly women showed more interest because I didn't have this pressure to make something happen. So when I was like in a park, talking with people, walking around, getting to know them, suddenly I bumped into a girl and she started fiddling around with her hair, which is a sign of interest. On another occasion, I was like also sitting in a bar. Saw a girl there, didn't think much about it. She read a book and I was curious about what you're reading. So I started a conversation asking her that. And I noticed that she was like showing interest, starting to flirt with me, starting to engage with me, getting closer to me, even putting a little doll from her own cultural background of Chile, that when she pulled her head, put up that. So that is one other example of that. For example, when I was like in a tram, I stumbled over the staircase in there. And that was basically the reason why I started a conversation with someone else who saw me stumbling into the tram. And I felt like we had a really good connection there. And I allowed myself just to flow without forcing anything, so that she asked me for the contact. And even though I couldn't reach out to her, like a few days later she reached out to me. And then we started to date each other. And so far we had like 3 very good dates and it felt very natural and flowing, and now we are getting closer. So in the past I used to basically blame my failures and lack of success based on my height. If you don't know why you're failing, you always look for another reason. And obviously this could be a reason. So I took this one back then. But because I discovered this belief and integrated it into my system, so it no longer affects how I show up, applying pressure to women and getting a certain outcome, I can just be myself and women feel that presence. I still flirt, I still banter, but it's a natural expression of who I am. So after 10 years, I realized we can create a lot of change in our life and dating experience by working with our beliefs. Now the stage is open for your questions. And my name is Stefan. I'm your dating therapist. Okay, very good question. So basically the thing with beliefs is they are very subconscious. You don't notice them until you pay attention to the repeating patterns in your life, which are an indicator that, oh, there's something you need to look into. And there are a set of tools, techniques, and questions you can explore what's the root cause of those patterns. Because these beliefs influence how you behave and show up in interactions, you know. And once you have integrated this, it no longer has any power over you and how you show up. And that process, like those techniques, only take a couple of hours to do. 2 hours, 3 hours, one evening, sometimes a few days if it's a bit more complex.
Like over a period of time, no?
Of course, in my whole 10 years, I had a belief, maybe I'm not good enough, so that was one session. Maybe later down the road, I discovered, oh, I have a lack of self-worth. There was some belief creating that, so I resolved that by integrating this belief. And then maybe another day I had another belief where I was supposed to behave in a certain way to get a certain outcome. It's a process, yes. And you'll see that over time you become more relaxed, at ease with yourself, you can be more authentic and also more relatable for the other gender. Yes.
Can you give us a tool for everyday's life, how to recognize and resolve beliefs?
Yes, let me think. One favorite way I discover beliefs is basically I make a certain half statement on a piece of paper and then I fill out the blank, like I complete the sentence with whatever comes out of my mind. For example, you can do it for like 2 minutes right now. Dating means, or love means, or women are. And then you have the initial subconscious responses coming up without judging them. You do that like 5 times, then you have like a certain of beliefs coming up. You're feeling to yourself like which one's the strongest, then you work with that and run through a certain process.
And how do I resolve them?
Well, you can either work with me professionally, or a homebrew tool is basically like you have this all statement and then you can also have the opposite positive statement. And you basically collect 5 positive statements because your mind works like stronger on negatives than positives. And to neutralize that, you formulate like a synthesis of those statements. Because if one is not really true and the opposite positive is not true, the truth is somewhere in between. So if you formulate this new true statement, you basically neutralize or weaken the old belief. Yes?
Talking about dating, so the way I was listening to you, just correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
So are you saying basically that it's good to have a lot of options?
It depends.
Because you know why I'm asking this? I feel like nowadays, with all this dating apps and stuff, it's like we're trying to run for options and options, and then love feels like a business to me. You know?
So your question is options related to?
Yeah, like are you saying to have a lot of options, or like related to if I don't have options, then I'm like desperate, or how do you mean?
Not necessarily. You can also focus on one or have no options and be congruent and integral with yourself and comfortable with who you are right now, which is the foundation of attracting someone.
I live in a house full of singles, and if I listen to their stories, it's just so depressing, you know, that yes, because they're meeting, like, it doesn't matter if it's a girl or a guy, they're dating 5 or 7 people at the same time, and then if somebody, I don't know, writes back an hour too late, okay, gone, I'm gonna because my app is full. I'm gonna take this Stefan. He's the shit, you know. And but then if Stefan can't do more than 20 push-ups, then okay, fuck Stefan. I'm gonna give him. And so it's like really. And then you have online and offline. You have myriads of choice and zu viel Auswahl macht unglücklich.
Yeah.
Right? So it's really. I mean, if I'm on a date, it's very boring. I say I'm on no apps. I'm not seeing anybody else, and I want to get to know you. And I don't care what she does with this information. If for her that's boring because I'm not sleeping with another 5 women, fine. This is me. I think it's nicer if you focus on one person.
Maybe changing the house would be a first step.
We're living in Zurich.
The thing is also like even you have multiple options, you have only a certain amount of attention you can give to different places or different people, you know. As soon as you have like more options than a certain threshold, you can't really be more intimate or giving the attention you need, you know, to form a bond or connection, really enjoy with appreciation in that sense. Then it becomes also more like handling a business with too many opportunities.
Maybe we can do a survey. Who is dating multiple people at the same time?
I didn't think 6 or 7 was even possible. It must be your
So
job.
you know.
It's 40%. You have 0 other tasks in your life if you manage to date 6 people.
Any more questions?
Yes. Yes.
When you are scared of something,
Yes.
like going to do something that you never did before, what's your technique to just do it?
Well, first of all, we are talking about of the comfort zone. Like we usually tend to stay what we are used to because it feels safe. And what I usually suggest is like you only do 5% outside what you're comfortable with in order to get used to it in that sense. And what really helps is like mindfulness and presence through meditation. They're like grounding techniques or mindfulness techniques where you can still be present and regulate your anxiety while doing the step outside of your comfort zone. And this becomes like a practice you do over and over again, which becomes like a natural self, like a natural part of who you are. You become comfortable with the discomfort by doing it more often, in that sense.
Next. What do you think, honestly, what do you think about all these apps for meetings?
Please delete
And
them.
also, how can it be more interesting? Because I find these apps very boring. I don't like to chat all the time. I don't use them. So I suggest you to make them more, I don't know, enjoyable or that I like them because I don't like them.
Yeah. Are we talking about dating apps, social media, or something like Meetup? Dating app. Well, my advice is just delete them, because it,
Come to double date speed dating event.
you know,
Oh yeah, we still have those spots.
you know,
You don't recommend one of
not at all, because it messes with your psychology. Men,
You're also using apps.
I only use them for 3 months and realized for men it's terrible because we don't get the attention we deserve for the value we are. So we have this distortion in our perception that maybe it's me, maybe I'm not attractive because there's no attention on me, you know? And the feminine perspective, I mean, you have more experience being a woman on a dating app than me, but what I know about that is like, usually you have so much attention, so much likes that you have to filter and select a lot, which distorts the perception of like, oh, I can have whatever I want, you know? And this like, on a surface level, like this, it's visual, it's on the surface, but when you meet a person face to face, you feel their presence, you have the full spectrum of communication. You get a good impression who this person might be long term. You can feel the connection when there's some things developing. No, let's go old school.
on the other side as well.
Thank you.
We go to the next.
Let's move to the next speaker. Thank you very much for your attention.